Kasturi Chandaraja, the first female Group CEO of a public quoted company in Sri Lanka. She's the group, I mean, apart from that, she sits on many boards, which all of you know. She serves on the boards of Morrison's PLC, Hema's Consumer Brands, Capital Alliance. She's a non-executive director. She heads the Chamber of Pharmaceutical Industry. She's the first woman to head the SLSPC. She sits on the Ministry of Sports. I can just continue with everything what she has done, which all of you all know. But I think the most important thing I like to tell you is that she's a very simple human being. She is very genuine to what she does. So, Kasturi, welcome to you, and let me hand over to you to talk a little bit about sports, being a sportswoman, a mom, and a CEO. Over to you, Kasturi.
Thanks, Rohantha, and I think it's a pleasure to be part of this MBA batch. I presume you all are doing a session on, I think the subject might be leadership.
Yep.
And, yeah. So for all of you all, yes, I've known Rohantha, I think from school days. He used to be a athlete, a hurdler, and I used to also do some athletics. I think Rohantha was far better than me in athletics, but I guess I was more into the team sports part of it. And on your question on my as a CEO, what my life in the sports field, being a mom and a CEO. I guess being the CEO came last of all as a new thing, but it would have been being in the order of how my life evolved. It's being a sportswoman, and I say that with my hand in my heart is because academics kind of took a back seat. Not that I did badly at all. I must say that I always, because of the competitive side of me, I would make sure I don't drop into my rankings. But I would have focused on the best subject I loved most. That was maths, and I would make sure I get my prize and the highest mark for that. The rest of it was like just passing through. But I was focused on doing very well in sports and winning with the team together. So that was biggest part of my life. And weirdly, I will tell you the lessons I learned there and the disciplines I learned there kind of carried me in my when I entered the corporate world and how I grew. Because see, I did mostly team sports. So there are two disciplines. When you are doing individual sport, the discipline you get from any sport is you don't become excellent overnight, right? You kind of you will have to practice hard. You'll have to do the same thing 100 times to become better. You don't become better by just doing, like, for example, I was a shooter, and I wouldn't become better because I just shot one shot every day. I would have had to do 1,000 shots every day, and 999 doesn't work. You have to click that. So that discipline, right? You understand in life there that you can't do anything alone. So your mother has to be on supporting you. Your friends support you. Your everybody around the ecosystem has to support you to do that. Then the second thing is you realize that in this journey of a team sport, each of us have a role to play. You are excellent in your role, maybe, but if the other one is not in his or her best self, the team won't win. So it's a funny thing how we have to work to become good, but we also have to support the other one to be the best that person can be. Then you get a really well-oiled team, and I wish corporates could work that way. It's very tough to bring this kind of energy to the corporate world, but that's that's the background we grew up with. And you win, you lose, you come out, you're together. And those were the lessons. And I was fearless because, look, there is no harm trying something. I think Rohantha is one person who has tried all sorts of sports, and we work out even now once in a way. But there's no, the fear of trying is something not, I mean, leaving things untried is a thing I think sports teach you to try anything. And the worst is you will not succeed. So what, you get up and try it again. So these were lessons which kind of carved my personality. And the biggest personal lesson in this thing is we worked with people from different walks of life, right? When I played for Sri Lanka, the basketball pool, we had girls from Kandy who didn't have places to stay. They lived in my home. And mind you, my family, it was my mother who did 3 jobs. My father never worked, or he did work till I was about 4 years old. And sometimes Amma would only make rice and one beef or whatever, fried rice and something. That's all we could afford to put on the table. But we opened our homes out, and these kids, these girls and I are friends for life. I mean, we sit together, we'll take buses, and I mean, none of us had cars. We were all very kind of from we were from middle income or low middle income families. And so you learn to appreciate each other for the human being they are. You don't carry the status in your life. I remember when I toured in for one tour, my mother used to actually pawn these bangles and give me a $50. And sometimes when you're doing a 2-3 week tour, you end up at the last 2 days, I wouldn't have money, right? And there would be girls buying food for me. And that's how people kind of support each other. And I mean, we still remain friends. I still play netball with them once a week or basketball. And that's the value of friendship and the value of forming friendships for the right reason. So that's that part of my life. Then I was one of those who you can clearly see lacked ambition, but I lacked ambition to on a corporate side, but I didn't lack competitiveness. I would want to do well in whatever I did. So I ended up getting married very early, had 2 kids, and I wanted to be the best mother I could be. And in my version, the best mother in my version at that time was being staying at home. And luckily, I had a boss who was a bit wiser than me, and he said, "Kasturi, no, you work part time. You don't have to give up." And so I worked at some restaurant part time, and eventually, when I was about 30, I got into full time work and started my career. And in my career, the biggest difference, I think, what helped me to go into different roles and come and sit in this position now is two things. One is the ability or the fact that I was not fearful to learn new things. So I was always put in the deep end and go and learn. So learning was always part of it. And I'm not talking about academic learning alone. I'm talking about just learning a huge new industry, not only reading, watching, observing, talking to others. And the second aspect is that my leadership style. I was quite comfortable leading the way I knew how to lead. I didn't benchmark myself with anybody else, and I didn't change my personality too much. But my core unique strength, I kept on, held on to it. And the fact that I could rally teams because of the sports experience and try to get others to succeed, because it's not, I can't change anything. None of us, no CEO alone can change anything. In fact, the higher you climb, the lesson I learned in the last 3-4 months is the CEO has the least amount of levers. When I was an MD, I had control of all the business employees and I could give direction. Here versus a CEO of a conglomerate, you have 4 or 5 CEOs to work with, 5 MDs to work with, and that's the only power you have. And how do you kind of pivot your leadership at that point? So that's my transition, Rohantha, from the sports field to being my mother and now and holding this position. But in the whole thing, I think what I could say is I'm still myself. Like the Rohantha I knew from then. We still love the simple things in life, and yeah, and I think I'll still do things I love. Rohantha, you're on mute.
Rajiv, can I have my presentation? Yeah, okay. Kasturi, can you see the presentation?
I can't.
Mm,
I'm not sure whether others can see. I'm not sure. I can't see it.
Let me just see.
I think you have to share it, Rohan.
Yeah, we just did it. Let me just see. Rajiv, you have to disable so that I can share a presentation. Okay, here we go. Done. Can see, Kasturi?
I can see, and I can see my face on it. Yes.
Okay. So tell us, I mean, we want to know a little bit about your beginning, like where did you work, how did you select your career? I mean, everybody says that you need to have a plan in your life, but I mean, see that you did a lot of sports, so, I mean, did you really make a choice saying that you wanted to be an accountant? And I mean, how did this happen? Did somebody influence you, or was it accident? I mean, how does it go?
So weirdly, I mean, that's a great question. So my beginning, the choices I made, I chose. Firstly, while in school, there were a few choices I made. I chose to chose to say that I wanted to be an engineer, purely because not that I wanted to be an engineer. I was very good at math, and that is so during our time it was either you do commerce in an A level, you have an art stream, then you have a science stream which you go either in the bio and medical side, or you do math side. So because I didn't like zoo and stuff like that, I did double maths, physics, chemistry, which meant engineering was the title you talk about, right? So that's a choice I made to choose the subjects I did. I left everything related to accounts. That was the last in my view of preferred subjects, and chose my sports, right? And weirdly, my career, it's everything in some ways. The fact that you know what you like, but you don't know what you don't like. So I didn't know anything about my career. I didn't know what I didn't like in my career. So that part of it was just an open green field. I could choose anything I wanted. And I got a offer within a week of leaving school to join this audit firm called Somesaran, which is it was Art Anderson at that time. Not for my auditing skills, which I didn't even know what a double entry meant, but it was for my sports to play A division netball. And they were the winners at that time. So it was like fantastic to be in a place where I can play basketball for Sri Lanka and A division netball. So my career, my beginning was chosen for me, and I jumped on it. And the first 2-3 years, I think I started at the age of 18. So the first 2 years, I just worked. So I got my practical knowledge. And mind you, the person I am, I will ask 1,001 questions because I need to know what I'm doing. So I like to do whatever I'm doing, I like to do well. So the double entry, I learned it from a practical sense. And I was very good at it. I was one person who couldn't balance the cash flow. Remember, I was not qualified in any form or shape. And touring away every year, I would do one tour or something like that. And it so happened universities opened eventually. That time JVP problems, so we were closed for some time, and finally they opened, and I got selected for physical science. I missed engineering by about 10-15 marks, I think. In fact, by that time I had represented Sri Lanka, so I went to the UGC and kind of appeal, because when you play for Sri Lanka you get extra 25 points.
Yeah.
So if I had got that 25, I would have got into engineering. But then they turned around and told me for medicine and engineering that doesn't apply. So I had to resign myself and agree that I would do physical science. And that is also not because I love to do it. It was just because I had agreed with my mother. My mother had a rule: you can do what you love, go and play and whatever, don't take any responsibilities on anything except get a qualification. Because if remember, she was a woman who led the household. She ran the house, she did 2-3 jobs. So she said, if there is any issue, you should be able to stand on your own feet. So that is why you need to get a qualification. So that was an agreement I had with her. So because I needed to fulfill that, university was one thing. And I walked into uni, I think 2 years since I passed out. And I think it was all of about 15 minutes, my life in university. I walked in and somebody tried to rag me or call me to be ragged or whatever. I'm sure he didn't even want to harm me. But I just looked at him, looked behind, I realized it was only me, and I said, thank you, and I walked home. And then I thought, oh crap, I need to think of something to do or get a qualification, because Amma was, I needed to do that for Amma. And at the same time, HNB was headhunting the entire netball team from Someswaran to come into HNB and play division, because it was always mercantile finals with Someswaran thrashing HNB. And we had some very key players who were there, all national players. And eventually HNB managed to take all 6, and I was one of those people. They offered a management trainee or some program with a 10,000 rupee salary. So I went to tell my boss, but he was saying, Kasturi, no, you qualify here. You're very good at your job. Why don't you get qualified? And then that's the conversation I had. Then they decided, because I couldn't afford SEMA, I thought chartered was a bit too boring for me. So I decided I'll do SEMA, and the company paid for it. And that's how I stuck on. And on an anecdotal side of it, so I stuck on, and the rest of the 6 left and joined HNB. And imagine the mercantile finals that season, it was in about 3 months. And so I was told, now Kasturi, form a team. Now, how do you form a netball team to take on 6 of the best who are there? Half of them were playing for Sri Lanka. And I was left here. I thought, okay, I'll play the game I know. So I recruited 6 basketball players to the netball team of Someswaran. And those 7 of us who were all basketball players, we played the match and we won by 1 point. And that was like the kind of icing on the cake for Someswaran then. So that's how I chose accounting. I was very good at it. Whether I liked it, I don't know, but I was quite good at it. And once that, I realized I had a knack on finance and accounting. I chose that as a career. So that was an entry for me to go. Did I think I was going to end up only in finance? Maybe I did. And when I left Someswaran, the first entry was legitimately from finance. I didn't look at general management. I looked at as financial controller of Aramex. And then when I came into to Hemas, also I went as a GM finance into Hemas. So you can see that naturally I thought I'm good at it. I need a job to be able to earn good money. And this is what I'm going to do. And luckily for me, I didn't choose finance. Accounting happened by accident, but once it happened, I made sure that I was good at it. So that's where the accounting kind of ended with Hemas, because very soon they had a culture which allowed you to try out different things, ask the dumbest questions. And I was pushed in to set up a BPO. I didn't even know what it meant, but at least go and learn and set it up. So I guess that was an experience. I realized that you don't need to know all the answers. You go learn it and come and implement it with a team who also doesn't know anything. We'll all learn together. And from there, I moved to IT and process, and then I ran businesses. So that's where my beginning didn't define my end. When I started at a 200 rupee audit clerk, did I think and ever dream this? Honest truth? No, I didn't. And I mean, was that my ambition? No, it was not my ambition either. But yeah, that's how the life goes, right? I don't think so. What worked for me is I didn't hard code my career path too early in life, nor did I hard code it even late in life. So when I was an MD of transportation, did I think about what's the next role and go into pharma? No, I didn't. At pharma, did I think I'm going to sit here? 2 years into the job, I did realize I was being put in and they were grooming me. But did I sit and think about it and ponder? No, till the last day I gave up my job at pharma, I ran pharma, because I came from a point, I always look at things. There's a lot between the slip of the mouth and between the cup and the lip. So I made sure while I was doing my transitioning and development, I would make sure the pharma job was my number 1 priority.
So Kasturi, does it mean that was there some mentor who used to guide you towards jobs, or is it that you just looked at the opportunity that come and I mean, I mean that
Yeah,
normally
yeah,
what have you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
some
I do
people say,
understand. A
some
valid
people,
fun question, but I think, okay, my answer to that is one time, generally it has been my bosses who have seen it. So it has been singularly Hussein who has seen potential. He's our chairman now. And that time Hemas was much smaller, about 1,000 employees, and they had visibility to whoever was there, kind of. And so the first move from finance director from him to us to as the setting up shared service was actually they decided it. So somebody thought I had the skill, I had the capability of influencing people and put me there. But from there to move to the CPO, actually I went and had a chat because not for CPO. I only said I'm bored. You either give me something else to add on to this, otherwise I need to move because I don't like coming to work and not having much to do. So that was a conversation I had. Beyond that, every other change has been done by the group who believed that I could do it. And that's how it went. And there has been always conversation. I've always had a coach for the last 10, 11 years before every transition who support me to understand what the role is, what kind of, well, I'm not the easiest personality. So how do people adjust to me? How do I adjust to them? To answer your question, actually, it has been more my bosses and the board pushing me than, except when I got bored about my job, I must say.
I mean, I yet remember how when I was chairman of Lanka Satosa and you tendered for logistics, and I had a chat with you after you all had won it.
1 minute, there's a message in this thing saying we cannot see the presentation. Why is that?
Oh, Rajiv, can we just see why we can't see the presentation?
This is previous one.
Okay, fine. Now they can see it, right? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right. I'll just check with the presentation. Right. So I yet remember when I was chairman of Lanka Satosa, when you won that tender to do the logistics, I came and spoke to you and said, Kasturi, don't do it. You know, it's absolutely corrupt. And you know why I said it is because I knew the career. I mean, at that time I was on the Hemas hotels board. And you know the discussions used to have, and I used to realize a lot of people have a lot of hopes on you. So I can't come and tell you that, you know. So I said, Kasturi, don't take it. But then Kasturi said, no, I'm going to do it, you know. So that was very daring in nature. I mean, at that moment, you know, even when you knew, you also know that it was corrupt, right? But what made you say, no, I'm not looking at my career. I have found an opportunity, I'm going to do it. I mean, and you know that there is enough people waiting to sling mud at you, not only from society, but even within. But what made you say, no, I'm going to do it?
So a lot of it, Rohantha, was I think when you were chairman, you brought a vision for Satosa, right? You wanted to take this. I yet remember the first few times we went into Satosa, it was like this. The Natames would carry those bags and nothing was automated. It was those pusher things. And how do you make that kind of environment to some sensible logistics kind of a thing? Look, if private sector doesn't support to uplift this, and I knew it came with a lot of backlash. I think you took a lot of backlash eventually once we said yes. And if we could make sure, so the thing it was a challenge. It was like, can we uplift and actually bring light to the vision you had? Or I think your board had, particularly you wanted to grow. And I remember certain statistics, the sales grew. There were operational big issues because you all were growing at a rate, because you all had suddenly mobilized and marketed, branded, cleaned up that. And the back end side, the thing was, the challenge is, can we bring some kind of upliftment to the kind of systems they had? it was a huge challenge, but we told them, look, it's not about the money. If you can just show and create value, that's something we should do. Of course, we don't do it. I think last year they didn't renew it because of certain of their own reasons. But honestly, it was a pride to let go at that point, because no more did we see those guys when you ran it. You know, we had these guys who were carrying stuff. It was more automated. There was a WMS. There was even the planning from the outlets were coming automated. There were customer service units with computers which didn't have the warehouse itself from that broken thing which rats running around were clean warehouses. So it didn't. I think we all left it with a sense of pride. And
Yep.
I guess nobody will talk about it, but that 4 years has brought Sadasur to a different level. Now they only have to build it from that. Um, the singular thing was, I think we believed in the vision or what you all wanted to create. And if we can take up the challenge and be part of it, and it meant, I remember the conversation you said, custody, don't take it. It's a huge thing. You have a huge risk of failing. And I said, yes, probability of failing is there, probability of risk is there. Make sure we communicate why we are doing it, and every step of the way be transparent of what value we are bringing, and make sure there is no hanky-panky any part of the process. So I guess we managed to navigate it. So
Yep.
it,
Yep.
it, it was one
So-
of the toughest.
Do you remember this photo? So where are these people now, your friends? This must have been when you were like what, 19, 18, 19?
This was when I was 17, when I captained, it was under 19 team. So I would have been 17 or 18. I was 17, captaining under 19. But because when I was 18, I played under that other girl who was there. So finally, I met all of them, not all, most of them. About when I became CEO, they had a felicitation from Kania to Shehara to Minoli. Minoli is overseas, Sureka is here. Christine was there. They're all here. Guy, a few of them are overseas, but the ones who are here, all of us met. Yeah. So this team was like from under 13, we have won always All Ireland. And the thing was, when we played under my captaincy, we won. When we played under the girl who stands behind me is Christine. Because I'm born in January, I can play 2 years. So we won under her as well.
So this is your batch now. Am I right?
Yes, it is our oldies. Yes. It's a mixture of basketball and netball. But can you see there are HFC girls there? There are Sri Lankan players there. Yeah.
So
And this is the Masters team.
So how do you do all this with COVID?
This we stopped 2 weeks ago. And we're waiting for the A levels to finish, because the only reason we stopped is we don't want to contaminate because students come there to do A levels. But I do exercise, my individual exercise I do every day in the morning, COVID or no COVID. But COVID disrupted this for about 4 months, I must say, Rohantan. And when we all got back together to play, we were all totally not fit. It's not like working out. When you play a game, it's a different element of fitness. I can see you have really stalked my Facebook here, but that's okay.
So what made you, what did you actually learn at Harvard, Kasturi?
So for me, I was a person, I didn't even do an MBA, Rohanta. Purely the timing never worked for me. I was, when they said at the time, everybody suggested I should do it. My kids were going to school, so I didn't want to take that time off. So this was, and I also had this, so a couple of years, about 5 years ago, I wanted to do the GMP program, but that meant it was 12 weeks at a stretch. And I couldn't leave my mom for 12 weeks at a stretch. So I opted out. And why do you think I needed a Harvard? I guess I realized, even though I grew in leadership and I grew in my career, I needed those finer points of how I articulate my thoughts, because I'm like mostly street smart. I have grown, I have created businesses through intuition, through my way I think strategy. How do I put strategy and business models into a context where I can relate, other people can relate to? So I needed to open my horizons without being too internal driven. And the board was quite keen. I get kind of the best in class OPA program. So eventually they had this SELF program, that means strategic executive leadership program, which is only, it's a condense of GMP, but it didn't have all 12 modules. It had 8 modules and it was broken over a year. So every 3 months you go for 4 weeks and you come back. And so that was it. I just loved it. I enjoyed Harvard. I must say I was fearful because it had 150 case studies to be read, and I'm not a person who loves reading. But I think that was one of the best experiences in my life. I'm sure you would. You know, you've been in Harvard many times, right?
Yeah, because can you tell us, like, I mean, I know, I mean, when we went to Harvard, you learn so many things, but actually when you walk out of the doors of Harvard, you remember only one thing. I just want you to know, or I want you to tell us, is there one thing which you picked up, which you implemented when you came back to Hemas? Just one thing.
Yeah, I guess one is the strategy and business model of the pharma team. So the advantage in here is I kept going in 4 times and I
Yeah.
walked out 4 times, right? So first module was, we had in this, when the strategy started, um, it was so pertinent. We were struggling with the price control in Sri Lanka, and we had just been hammered up to now. 5 years down the line, we still haven't got a pricing mechanism in place. But it opened my eyes to how you can simplify it. So one thing I understood there is we use this word strategy, but it's a simple way of solving a problem. You should not overcomplicate it. It gives you certain lenses on how to look at it. And in how Harvard works, it's with case studies. So I would have read down about at least 8 case studies where strategy had worked, didn't work, different industries. So what I did is, whatever I thought we could draw lessons, I sent it to my exco team while I was there. I said, read it, I'll come back and we'll have sessions. So that was one. So we actually looked at our business model because we knew our margins were straining. We looked at our business model because we needed to know how to grow. And and the team actually went through the session with me as I came. So I kind of tried to be this lecturer who just simply asked dumbest questions. Why do you say that? Why do you say that? Till you get you granularize it to a point that you say, okay, wow, that's where our strategy would lie. And for a simple distribution company, we kind of created that. And today, that company had grown top line in from 2016 to 2020. We doubled our top line and doubled our bottom line. But the unique thing is, it created that model, which was what they thought as a model where we are going to be different to competition. And it was very endless executing it. But that's a journey which I think the exco and I both went through this. And it took about, when I finished it, we were starting to launch certain route to market and certain things. But that was it, the first model of strategy. Because for me, the word strategy was something I should die thinking, my God, it's something I will never understand. It's such a kind of a very ominous word. But reality, you just break it down. It's what you're doing, why you're doing it, for whom, what value you're creating. Simplify it and keep asking. So why do you say you're doing this? What value? Why do you say it? Why do you say it? I learned this question of ask the dumbest why so many times till you come to a simple answer. You get people to answer, and then you could so that was the biggest learning. And weirdly, I still have my 4 sessions, the notes. And I still would, when I have a problem, I go back to, because when I overthink, I open it. And I look at the frameworks, because that just says, okay, zoom out, just structure it this way, think this way.
So last week, did you read any article last week, or did you do a little bit of research?
No, I haven't done, I must be honest, but I would have done about a month back when I was doing the group strategy. And I thought, oh God, why do I start? I thought, do not complicate, open your book, started it that way. And yeah, it simplified it. It just simplifies stuff. Yeah.
Do you take time off to read papers, or to understand something? I mean, from where do you grow your knowledge, which you thought you picked up? I mean, from Harvard, it was not actually just what you learned, but it's like saying, I need to have some input coming in on a continuous basis. So where do you get that input right now? Because once you go to office, it's always output. You're just giving everything you can. So how does that
Yeah.
work with you?
So what had happened was maybe the last 4 years or post Harvard, last 3 years, um, I consciously would block in my calendar at least 2 days, 2 half a days in the evening, which is my time. So nobody can, my PAs won't allow me to put unless it's needed. So the last 2 weeks, because of our planning and COVID times, a bit that has been eaten. So those are the times I take some interesting. So I get interesting articles. I'll receive. I put it into my. I keep it for me to read later, and I read it. I mean, those are, and I love the stories of other businesses to learn from it, as stories of other CEOs, the mistakes they make. I guess the lesson is I learn a lot from others. And theory, yes, is important, but theory, how does it relate to practice? Practice is something I would prefer. The Lego business case. I mean, I even read quarterly updates of FMCG healthcare companies globally, regionally, just to understand what the trends are. Yeah, so those are the days I allocate and keep. So
So what is the biggest mistake that this lady has made?
wondering whether that's the picture was the biggest mistake there. So on a business world, so generally I think the audience might be thinking what is the materiality would define the mistake. I'll tell two aspects on business itself. Sorry, my dog is biting my chair here. So one first thing is where when I got the license, when I walked in to do as an MD of transportation, I was given a 100 million uh, ticket to make mistakes with. So Hussein said, Kasturi, we want you to take this transportation and make it a different business, grow it. Don't let it be aviation dependent. So at that point, when I took it over, it was 80% was aviation with the GSS, 20% was maritime and some courier business and all that. And he said to grow that. So I said, I don't have the entrepreneur spirit. I'm giving you, there's 100 million pocket mistake allowance you're given. Go try your luck in different things. So then you have this thing and you go and try your luck. And one place I was really passionate was logistics, which I had been doing research when I was in the corporate. And there was one investment which I made. We acquired Scanwell Logistics, and that's what which grew. And then eventually we got in GAC in, and so that's Spectra now. And then we also thought, okay, maritime. Why don't we? At that time, Sri Lanka was this hub where you have crew changes, right? And all the security crew changes, and let's buy some boats with our partners and do it. And I thought I knew what boats look like and what you needed. And that was a big mistake, and that cost the group. I'm sure we lost about 30 million there, but the big mistake. So the lesson learned for me is leave technical. You need to get different views for technical expertise. I also went to Turkey and jumped on a boat, and I listened with a German guy what it was, the other partner. None of us, I thought he was technically okay, but none of them knew that those kind of boats don't work in the waters of in Gaul, which is the most roughest waters. They call it a swell, which is like it moves quite wide, the whole wave. And so that was a good mistake. So don't venture out into things you don't know unless you have really competent people around you. And that was the business side. The second side in business is actually when I took over pharma, the preceding CEO had they wanted to go regionally, and we went into Myanmar. And I still think it was a good thing we did with the equity we had with all our business partners. We ventured in, and it was doing decently well. I used to go there every quarter, and it was set up well. And then I decided to do Harvard, and I got another FD, not from pharma, but some other FD who reported to me, and another person to actually go and stay there. stay there and make sure that it was managed. So the mistake there was I was asking questions and they were telling me the answers I wanted to hear. So is the distribution going on? It's okay, Kasuri. Don't worry, it's reaching. It's there. I never I never dug deeper to say, show me the numbers, show me where it is coming. Have you checked this? I took it for granted. I was very happy hearing the answers I wanted to hear because these were senior people. So I finished Harvard. I was seeing the business was struggling. I didn't know what was going wrong. I was asking questions. I was getting the answers, which didn't make sense, but fine. And as I finished, the first thing I did was take off to Myanmar. And when I sat there, the first meeting, I realized it has gone south. The model is not what I planned. It is gone a different way. So first, and I had to move out those people who were handling it and course correct, change CEO. But the lesson here was I asked the questions, which were right, but the answers of what they were telling me were not really the answers which were actual answers. And I accepted it because it was ideally what I wanted to hear. So I should have actually probed deeper when you're managing businesses which are so many miles apart. How do you kind of get it right? It shouldn't be verbal answers, it should be data driven. So that's a lesson I've learned, and I've told them now that with lockdown, make sure we have visibility of what's happening and stuff like that. So those are the business answers questions. But I think the biggest mistake on the other side is on a personal front in a corporate is I am quite a straight person and I don't play politics anywhere, Rohanda. So not being political savvy within organization was a weakness because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't care what was happening. And I was never ambitious to sit on somebody else's seat. So I mind my own business. But sometimes it might be better for you to for me, if I was a bit more astute about corporate politics. And Hemas has very little compared to the most. But I guess that was trusting things a bit too much was a bit of a I would personally see I would have done it a bit better if I had the second chance on that. Yeah.
By the way, I just want to let you know that you have just cost 100 people watching you and it's growing.
Okay.
So, but tell me, Kasturi, do you sometimes wonder, I mean, because of COVID, and you have 2,000-3,000 people that you have to give food to every day, does it scare you to know? I know the owners are behind you and they are guiding you, and you have a mentor and you have a strong leadership team. I mean, but does it scare you because of the COVID issue? Because none of us know. I mean, I'm just coming from a business today, and we were doing so good. We were at like 40% growth, 5% above budget. We have planned on new creatives that had to be developed, and we are pushing the agencies to develop advertising. I've recruited and expanded the sales force, and right now most of the distributors are saying, hey guys, I don't want to carry 3 week stock. And we are saying, hey, listen, Monday it's all over. Next week, don't worry, everything is going to be back to normal. But they're saying, it's easy for you to say, but if something happens to my retail outlet, are you going to pay for it? So I'm just walking in after that kind of exposure. So then you suddenly realize, I mean, what do I do? Because end of the day, I have to pay the salaries end of the month. I have to make sure the sales are coming. So in your capacity, you have 5,000 people like that, or more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't. Not scare. I know what you're saying. I don't say I'm scared. I'm a person who doesn't back off from things, but it worries me a hell of a lot. Because look, end of the day, it's not like the first round of COVID this time around. We need to keep the economic, the engines going, right, as private sector. How do you get your workforce to work? How do you make sure that whatever protocols you have are safe enough? And how do you get them to understand not only what we do in office, when you go home, you have to adapt to it. So there's no amount, education is important. But most importantly, what happens if now, I mean, your Salesforce thing is a real problem. We've all had that problem. And how do you convince your partners also that, look, be positive, let's get this engine going, stock up a bit more. Monday onwards, we can start this whole order taking, we'll make sure the orders are happening. But it's a worry because every incident, if you have an incident in one of the organization and you have to move that shift out into quarantine and move in the next shift in, it's also a reduction in productivity and production. There is a consumer demand drop as well. And how do we, and last thing you want to do is go down the roads of when we have businesses which have some demand, we can't go down the road of salary cuts and laying off people. So you need that minimum churn in. So the worry is, are your employees safe? That is the paramount thing. Do they understand what safety means? And are people also right there alongside them? So, and then the business part of it. So that worry won't go. The only thing we can do is address all the addressable risks. And if you say, look, guys, we have to keep moving within this thing, what are the big risks? If I say, we need to keep operating, what are the big risk items? Hospitals is a business which we have to operate. Due with COVID, the probability that at least there's one patient who's walking in with COVID. So all the most people are with the safety equipment. So we had somebody who came in about 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago into Talwatagoda, and the patient had been a kidney transplant patient from Jayawardhanapura. He walked into the ETU or OPD and said his transplant had an issue and complication. But that doctor said, put him to ETU and call the doctor immediately. But they all suspected COVID because he had those symptoms. And the patient insisted it was not that. But we sent him back to Jayawardhanapura and then they did the PCR, found him positive. Now, how do you handle? We had contact traced 8 people who came into contact. Immediately, they were put into accommodation we gave and tested them for 10 days. We had to test them. They were negative, thank God. But business, that's a risk. So a patient, wherever he roams, so we have to make sure processes are in place where the employees don't cross commit.
So can I ask you something?
Yeah.
I mean, Trump got COVID, right? So my question is, there's nothing called saying you cannot get COVID.
Yeah.
You can also get. So have you already thought of a second line in case you get COVID?
Yeah, I guess so. We don't, the MDs and I don't, we don't come to work on the same days. We are in different floors. And they manage, and we will manage without it. I mean, each one has a second tier. And we worry about, so I guess none of us know business will collapse if I'm not there for 2 weeks or 1 month. No business will collapse if the MD is not there because we have tiers. But we worry about, look, can this person, what biggest worry we had is if somebody is tested positive of ours, we don't want them into going into quarantine center. Can we allocate our own quarantine center? And so these are the things. We want our people to be comfortable. We want to make sure.
That's a good one, Kasturi. That's a good one.
Because
see, yeah,
it's very tough. That's the fear, not getting the disease, but how do you handle this? So that's what we've been asking. I guess we have to just support their family. So we had, case in point, we had 2 employees, 2 of our lab girls who were operating the lab in Ave Maria Hospital in Negombo. And that hospital, one of the patients had COVID. But those 2 girls were quite confident they didn't get it because they said, look, we wore up safety protocols. We made sure that because we give equipment to them, we adhered to it. So no chance. But they were put in quarantine. We quarantined them in isolation and kept. But then, so what was their worry? So one she was living with her mother. So we had to make sure the mother was looked after, the food was there, provisions were bought, all that. The other lady had a son or daughter doing A-levels. So we had to make sure transport was there to take the child for A-levels. So that support system, we can't prevent somebody getting COVID. We can only protect as much as you can, and then make sure that life is kind of as best as possible. So what we are trying to do is demarcate at least smaller groups so that we can isolate groups easily and
Okay.
not have business interruption, which is tough. Yeah.
Sure. Very, very excellent. So tell us about how, when you were chairman of the Women in Management, IFC, I mean, you had to identify people who uh, ho- I mean, what did you find out, Kasturi, there in terms of identifying potentials of women? Because we have a lot of people out of these 100+ people who are watching who are all ladies in professional management, and since you have gone up uh, in a very funny way, your whole ambition was totally on sports. Your whole selection of the jobs was on sports, you know. And then of course, after you got in there, you know, your skill set overran your sports, and it found its way. And even when it came to at very high senior level management, once again, it was just that you were there at the right time at the right place, and you picked up and you move forward. So, what would you tell of a person who has not only been at Hemas but looking at selecting the best women in the whole country on a World Bank project like this? I mean, what's your
Well, Rohanta, I faced the same challenges you faced when you were chairman. I think you were chairman for about 9 years. I was only chairman 1 year, I guess. Uh, but the thing is, it was never an easy job. We had so many talented women, and then some of them don't even apply. And how we, I guess, the fact that having a good judging panel alongside you was helpful. That and the diversity of opinion was something I guess I learned. Everybody had a view, and weirdly we come to a consensus. But how we push back and we want, and if we didn't get somebody, I guess we were not willing to just settle for second best. So that thing, oh, I mean, I guess we had so many stories which I learned. I took out, I think we all took out more as judges from that event than we give them there, because we got exposed to so many stories which otherwise we won't be exposed to. And all of us take an effort to go and find stories. And I guess sometimes we have had an easier life than many, and it kind of humbles you to think how they've done well. But so my experience there was, it's a tough process, but when you have judges who are also very unbiased and who are willing to give their feedback the way they see it, and accept diversity in terms of opinion, and not get annoyed with each other, I think it makes sense. So one
what's
thing
your what's your message to the youngsters, Kasturi? Having come up there, you have won the awards. I mean, you won, I think, best woman.
So my message to them is, you don't have to be a director or CEO to win an award. I guess you are just highlighted. I remember there were so many awards where people have just made a difference, and the story itself we give an award. So enjoy what you're doing, have an impact in whatever area you're operating in, impact others, and make the others would be the best brand ambassadors for you.
Can you see
So
this photo?
yeah, I did see this photo. That is my
These are what?
yeah. So
What were you there?
I was a school games captain. So the
Mhm.
principal and the other ladies was the school. That is Sriyan's sister, Sriyan Vijayaratna's sister. She
Yeah.
Samantha. She was the head girl.
So,
And I refused to give a speech. I wanted to give my badge up, because at the sports meet I had to give a speech, and Sam would sit and train me every day after school class. It's not a big deal. You just have to speak. So.
so yeah, are you in touch with these people, Kasturi?
Yes, I am, and some of those people are my closest friends now. I mean, they're all over the world. I must be honest, they're all over the world. But my closest friends are my school friends.
You never dreamt when you were sitting there that you'll be the first MD, and you'll be your picture will be in the Parliament of Sri Lanka.
And pictures splashed everywhere excessively. But no, I didn't. I didn't read.
By the way, you didn't go to Parliament the day you were invited for that opening. Am I right?
I didn't
Because
because
you
I tried to tell I had a board meeting and I was very shy to tell my board that they are getting an award at the parliament and my picture is being unveiled there. And I thought and it is not it was the holdings board, right? And we had global people coming from India, from Tata Group and all. And I thought, no, they would think this girl is really off. So I didn't even breathe a word. When they saw this, he said, when was it? I said, it was on the day of the board meeting and I was shy to tell you all this.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, that is Kasturi, who is so passionate to what he does, what she does, that when the parliament and the president of the country calls you, she says, no, it's my job that I have to do. And that's the beauty of this person. So who are these people?
So, I studied in the Tamil medium, even though half the time I was, and how I have lots of Sinhalese friends is when I went to do math, I was the only student from another friend of mine joined from St. Clair's, and we didn't have a Tamil teacher to teach us maths, right? So the Sinhalese teacher would teach us maths in English. So I used to go and hang out with them and other. So this is my Tamil class. So most of them did commerce and science. And sadly, after 83 riots, most of them got affected and went to either Australia and Canada. But you wouldn't believe, whenever I go to Aussie and if I go to the US, they have a reunion and we just meet up. So every single one of them is in touch with me. And I mean, that's the beauty of these friendships you have.
So you studied in Tamil medium, but then you went on to, okay. So you did your A-levels also science in
Tamil, but you know what? So I learned it in English. So learning a problem in English and answering it, and versus when you sit for A-level, you have to read that whole question in Tamil. So I used to go 6 months before the A-level. I went to a teacher from Hindu college who taught me to read the question in Tamil and think in Tamil. It's a different process how you think in Tamil.
So in office, do you talk in Tamil to the Tamil people, or how does it go?
With my broken Tamil, I have so at home I have domestics who speak in Tamil, but with my broken Tamil, I'll manage.
I can see Shivani Lou is there.
Yeah, Shivani is there. Yeah.
So this is your elite friends of yours. The very elitist friends.
I think, friends.
Yeah, they I think own about half of Sri Lanka, half of Colombo. So tell me, how do you balance your friends and now running corporate? I mean, how do you balance this, Kasturi? Because you have to do your sports, you have to spend time with the people in office, and you have to keep up. You have to study to keep up with what's happening in the world. So you allocate time. So what do they tell about you now?
So for me, the thing is, if you're passionate about something, you'll make time for it. And my friends, my closest friends are a small group who have been with me for the last 20 to 40 years. And we somehow, we would connect at least once a week on phone, but otherwise we would connect once a month. And it's not that you have to meet all the time, but they're there for you if you need, and I'm there for them if they need. So that we'll pick up a phone if you really need help. I know, when I worked and if I had to travel, and my mom has dementia, so I always needed a standby person. It was my friends. I would just tell them, leave the nurse a number of my friends, and I tell them just call for emergency, and that's what happens. Mm-hmm. So my closest friends might be about 8 people, and they've been my biggest supporters. They don't judge me. They accept me for who I am. And the same way, I don't, and that's, I think, when we've known each other for so long, so they're kind of my shield. They kind of protect me anyway.
Are they jealous of you?
Honestly, not my friends, not my closest friends, but there would be people who are, humanity is that, right? There'll be people who really would appreciate it. I learned it from this announcement itself. So my closest friends are really, they were celebrating way before, and They pray for me, they have masses for me. So their celebration is one will have a service for me, one will have some other blessing, get a priest. So they are all worried that, they want me protected. So that's how they show their love for me. But when this announcement came, I had three different kind of feedback. The younger generation who were like sub 30 or sub 35, who actually were inspired and they wanted careers. So their thought was, Kasturi, thank you for showing us. And I didn't look at it this way. To be honest, Rohanta, I never looked at it this way. Thank you for giving us hope and knowing that, giving us a path to succeed. So which actually, while I was humble, it also gave a lot of responsibility on me, because I thought, wow, what if I don't do well? That means these kids don't have a chance, or they'll be given, these kids be growing up in this whole theory of a woman has failed in this job, right? So I have to make sure I succeed, because the future generation has to have that avenue that a woman has succeeded. So they have a chance, they have a license to go and own that space. If I don't, they won't have that license. They actually will be at a disadvantage. That's one lot. Then you have the ones in their 40s or whatever who are the competitive ones, which say, yeah, it's not a big wow, that's fine. And then, of course, I must say, Rohan, that there are the men who are kind of worried, wondering what's happening there. Why didn't anybody make an issue when they did something? So I'm saying, like, I'm sorry that's how the cookie crumbles. So yeah.
So now this lady who is the second from the right couldn't find money to go for basketball practice from Vellavatta to Sugaddas Stadium. Huh?
I was looking at Chiara, yeah.
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 So today she sits on the MD, and I mean, see, it's very interesting how, how I think you've been very intuitive while looking at the science of management, on your career selections and the opportunities you've taken. But also it tells you that if you work for a good company, the companies also guide you, which is, I think, which is a combination which you did, Kasturi. And if I add the dots, you also have a set of friends who are supporting you. So you have social support, you have your workplace support, and then you have, of course, your ambitions of what you like to do. And if you don't manage all these three, you cannot succeed, which is what you have done. So tell us finally.
This I can tell you, you had a knack of always connecting the dots, right? I read your articles and stuff. You look at any incident and you create a very interesting view. And this is what you're saying is absolutely true. I just do the little. I only have to have the passion and the commitment to learn. The company has to actually give you the environment and the opportunities and the belief and the culture for a woman, and a woman who can be outspoken to succeed. And the support around you. I mean, you can't do anything. I mean, in life, even bringing up my kids, if my domestics were not there, would I be able to do it? No, I should be eternally grateful to them. So that whole social network and the fabric which supports you is important. Yeah, I'm great. I mean, I'm sure you can do an article on that. Yeah.
So tell us finally about Sudhu.
Sudhu and Brownie. Oh my God, these two were two dogs. There, if you walk, anybody goes to Independence Square, you see two dogs who look a bit similar. One is fairer than the other with belts on their necks. So one has a blue belt and a red belt. They have been with us, working out with us. We used to feed them, me and my friend Janaki. However, during lockdown, we decided in April, we got permission and decided we would go and feed that whole lot. So it was not only Sudhu and Brownie, but we had about 10 dogs will come. And when during lockdown, it was only our Jeep, which would be at 6 o'clock or 6:45 in the morning. They sit on that, near the statue, and they look at you, and you can see them coming across the vehicle and the smiles, and they eat. From that time, they got very close to us. So now when we go walking, they do the jog with us. In fact, yesterday night, I went for a jog, and I'm like stopping my jog because Brownie is running, and they're old and they're tired and they're not eating properly. So this is our relationship with Sudhu and Brownie. They are such lovely dogs. We've tried to home them, but they are not happy in a home. So people say, why are you doing this? Because I think he howled the whole night in the house because he wanted to go out again. So that's our relationship. And yeah, and those are the simple things in life.
So the final message from you to youngsters, Kasturi, now that we have connected the dots of school and your friends and your office and now Sudhu, what is your final message to the youngsters who are watching you? Because I mean, what you said is not in the books, and that's the whole purpose of today's discussion. That yeah, you went back to books and you kept coming in and out of books, but of course you are a bright kid because to get into university with 15 uh, just falling short of 15 marks means that you're bright. So you had the whole construct hardwired in your head. It was just that you didn't clearly have a clear vision, but then you have done so good. So what's your message in final words to these 100 plus who are watching you?
So what my message is, each of you have a unique skill, and take it from me that companies need all the different skills. So for now, I mean, I must say now at Hemas, I'm trying to launch a young program, get some young smart people, but I'm very particular. I want musicians in, I want liberal arts in, I want engineers in, I want all the mix, because I think we can benefit by getting these diverse thoughts in by these young people, and these people who are passionate, who are not fearful of learning stuff. So while you're doing MBAs, that theory is very important. You'll have to take the theory and relate it to your work, because you can't take it and write it. And one thing in life, in commercial world, you can't script the outcome. That outcome will never happen. You can take an Excel book, a sheet, you can do a PowerPoint, and you can write what you want as an outcome. And when you turn back and go to the market, that outcome doesn't come. You have to be able to convince the retailer, convince the distributor. You'll have to be able to convince the consumer that this actually is what meeting his needs, and it will stick with him or her. The fact that you are creating friends within that, each friend of yours has a different skill. Learn to appreciate it, because that's the only way you will learn from each other, and draw down on each one's experience. And only together you all can succeed. So I guess be passionate enough to learn, want more, think differently, be bold enough to think the dumbest things, because that is not scripted in any education curriculum. Question everything, because that's the only way you can actually simplify a lot of your answers, because when you question, you granularize it to a simple answer. And enjoy this. I mean, I know it's tough when you do an MBA, but enjoy it for more than an exam perspective. Take it up as a learning perspective, learning where you're going to absorb knowledge versus absorb theory. And try and apply it as soon as you can, because if you let it be for about a year or two, in 3 years you will not remember what you studied, and you wouldn't know how to connect the dots of. And remember, there are, as like Rohantha very rightly listened and connected dots. When you're studying, you have to connect the dots in your real life, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're an academic, you're a corporate person. You need to connect the dots on what you're learning. And most of all, actually enjoy what you're doing today, because God only knows what COVID has taught us. You don't know what is there tomorrow. Enjoy and feel a sense of fulfillment in whatever you do, whatever role you do. I think whichever role I held, if I didn't feel fulfilled, I wouldn't have been doing that role.
Thank you very much, Kasturi. And I like to, I don't know whether Bandula is in anywhere. Bandula Egodoge.
There are a lot of questions on this. Would you want me to look at it, or what?
What are the questions they're coming? Success.
You,
Okay. What is your advice for a student who choose MBA who has a bachelor's degree in science?
I think bachelor's science alone, I think it gives you the ability, it gives you a different skill, how you break it down and think, right? It's more analytics. MBA can be much later. I only advice I'll say is whichever the bachelor's degree, unless it's very technical, the base degree, it's just opening your doors to some first opportunity. Beyond that, you can pivot in the way you want to. MBA, when you're a bit more mature and you know what you want, you have questions you can't answer, go ahead with it. I know I didn't tell you one thing when I went into Aramex, I started my SCCA final because reason not to qualify, but I needed to be, I had to consolidate and had forgotten my consolidation and stuff like that and my tax part of it. So there's no right or wrong. I would only say bachelors, choose what you enjoy or choose what you're good at. Don't choose what others expect you to choose. Masters, wait for some time till you know what you're good at and know you're more self-aware about your strengths and where you kind of think you'll enjoy working.
There's another one. Has self-doubt ever been a hurdle in your life? If so, what do you do? Shahim is asking you.
So Shahim, I think self-doubt, there are two things come to my mind. One was one incident is when I was given the role of managing director of transportation. I kind of said I'll think about it because I doubted that I could move from a functional head into a business head. And mind you, a business head where I was supposed to manage people who were older than me, and in an industry I didn't know anything about. And I had doubt, and I told my boss I'll come back to him, I'll think about it. And I didn't go back to him, and he called me back, I think in 2 weeks or 1 month or something like that, and said, what do you do? What do you think? I said, well, I didn't think about it, but anyway, I think I won't take it. And he said, no, I've made the decision, you're going ahead with it. So that was one. The second, I think I had for the longest, which I had to get coached, was, look, so when you go into so see how Rohantha, to kind of articulate it. So Rohantha has a skill of connecting the dots and talking, and sometimes how the male brain thinks and female brain thinks is different, and how I present is different. You can clearly see, right? So the board, whether we like it, historically boardrooms are male dominant, and I had a doubt of how I could work with, how would I be able to get the board to understand my thoughts. Whether I was doubting whether I could kind of move, I would be able to hold the command the board the way others would or a guy would. So that self-doubt I actually managed to sort out, and I brought it up with my coach, and he said, the answer he said is, if anybody's curious, is be yourself. So Kasturi had a USP, be yourself. That's how the Harvard structure worked for me, because I got some tools in how I handle it. So that was two incidents. So yeah. There's one
Thanks,
question.
Kasturi. I mean, I got 27 questions on my WhatsApp, but I'm going to let you go. It's almost 7:40. But knowing Kasturi, I know she'll always answer all 27 questions before she goes. I know that. I mean, that's her attitude, and that's where she gets it. But I mean, it's excellent to have you on board. I know you're really, really busy. I've been trying to get you on board for some time, but I know you were, caught up. So thank you very much, Kasturi, and it's really lovely to see you moving up. The chairman is Bandul Eguluge for APIT, the former chairman of EDB. So he was going to come and speak, but he couldn't connect, Kasturi. So he gives his wishes to you. And maybe I will speak to him and ask him to offer 5 scholarships to Hemas for MBA education. You can recommend.
I'll do a trade. You do that, and I will do, for every batch, I'll do a session.
Oh, thank you. That would be great. So all the best, Kasturi. Thank you very much.